He mocked me before everyone to impress his lover, his laughter echoing in my ears like a blade. But as the room erupted with cruel smiles, I smiled back. Because what he didn't know was that I already had a ticket, one that would take me far from his world, forever. The night was supposed to be ours. The annual corporate gala where Ethan was being celebrated for closing one of the biggest deals of his career. For weeks, he had talked about this event, how much it meant, how nervous he was about his speech, how proud he felt knowing I'd be there by his side. I had chosen my best dress for him, a sleek navy gown that shimmered under the light, the same color he once said reminded him of calm seas. I even wore the silver bracelet he gave me on our anniversary, back when he still whispered, "You're my lucky star." The ballroom sparkled like a dream, crystal chandeliers, the soft hum of a jazz band, people clinking glasses filled with expensive wine. Everything was elegant, perfect, except for the way my heart started to twist the moment I saw him. Ethan stood near the stage, laughing too loudly, his hand resting lightly on Cassandra's shoulder. Cassandra, the woman everyone in the office whispered about. Smart, beautiful, dangerous. I'd noticed the way she looked at him before, the lingering touches, the private jokes. He had told me she was just a colleague. But now, watching them, I realized just was a lie. When his eyes met mine, his smile faltered for a moment. Then he straightened, pretending everything was normal. He waved me over with that polished charm he wore like a mask. I walked toward him, forcing myself to breathe evenly. Maya, he said, loud enough for the people around to hear, you made it. You didn't get lost this time, did you? A ripple of laughter moved through the small circle around him. My chest tightened. That joke, it was ours. A private one. I'd once missed an exit and driven 2 hours the wrong way on a weekend trip, and we'd laughed about it for days. But hearing it now, thrown into the open for entertainment, was like being slapped with my own memories. I managed a small laugh, my voice trembling slightly. Not tonight. Cassandra leaned closer, her red lips curving in amusement. Oh, is this the famous Maya? The one who ended up in the wrong city last year? Ethan told us, it's hilarious. More laughter. My fingers dug into my clutch. I could feel the heat rise to my cheeks, but I didn't let it show. Ethan didn't even look at me with sympathy. Instead, he laughed along. She means well, he said lightly. She's got the heart, maybe not the sense of direction. The crowd laughed again. My world shrank into that moment, the noise fading, the light blurring. I stared at him, at the man I had loved for 4 years, the man who once promised me the world. And I realized that somewhere along the line, he had replaced respect with ridicule. I straightened, forcing my voice to stay calm. You're right, Ethan. I don't always know where I'm going. But at least I'm learning which directions don't lead to people who lose themselves trying to please others. The laughter died. Cassandra's smirk flickered. Ethan blinked, caught off guard. I smiled politely and turned away before anyone could say another word. The moment I stepped out of that ballroom, the air felt different, cold, crisp, honest. I walked across the marble floor, each step echoing like a heartbeat I could finally hear again. My hands were shaking, not from anger, but from awakening. Outside, the city lights stretched endlessly, the night sky heavy with stars. I stood there, letting the wind brush my face, and for the first time in years, I didn't cry. I just breathed. My phone buzzed. Ethan's name flashed on the screen. Where did you go? Stop being dramatic. You embarrassed me by walking out like that. I stared at the message. Not once did he ask if I was okay. Not once did he apologize. Everything was about him, his image, his ego. My thumb hovered over the reply button, but instead, I powered off my phone. Silence filled the space where his voice used to live. I walked to the parking lot, slipped into my car, and sat there in stillness. The dress felt too heavy, like it belonged to another life. I looked at my reflection in the rearview mirror, mascara smudged, eyes tired, but something else was there too. Strength. Quiet and steady. That's when I remembered the plane ticket tucked inside my wallet. The one my sister Layla had sent weeks ago. A one-way flight to London. She'd begged me to come help with her design studio, said I had talent and needed to stop wasting it. I had laughed it off then, said I couldn't leave Ethan. But tonight, I realized Ethan had already left me, long before that gala. I didn't drive home. I drove straight to the airport. At 1:30 a.m., the terminal was nearly empty. I bought a coffee I didn't drink, sat by the large window, and watched planes disappear into the night sky. Each one looked like a promise of freedom. My heart ached, but beneath the ache was something that felt dangerously close to peace. I pulled out my phone and turned it on again, not to text Ethan, but to book an earlier flight. I had nothing to explain. No goodbye to give. When the boarding announcement echoed through the terminal, I stood and walked toward the gate. My hands trembled as I handed over my ticket, but not from fear, this time, it was from release. The plane engines roared as it began to move, and I pressed my forehead against the window. The city lights below looked smaller and smaller until they blurred into a soft glow. Somewhere down there, Ethan was probably still laughing, still surrounded by people who clapped for him, unaware that the woman who had loved him most was finally gone. But one day, I knew he would remember this night, not as his victory, but as the moment he lost something real. I whispered into the hum of the aircraft, my voice trembling but sure, let him laugh. Let him shine. Because I'm done being the shadow that makes his light look bright. The flight attendant smiled politely as she passed by, asking if I needed anything. I shook my head. I already had what I needed, distance. As the clouds swallowed the city below, I closed my eyes. Behind my eyelids, memories flickered, our first date, his promises, the warmth of his arms. Then, like an old movie reel reaching its end, it all faded to black. He mocked me to impress his lover, but in doing so, he freed me. Because that night, while he laughed, I found my direction. And for the first time, it was leading me away from him. He mocked me that night to impress his lover, but months later, when he stood outside the airport begging me to stay, I realized the sweetest revenge wasn't anger. It was peace. And peace looks a lot like walking away without a backward glance. London felt like a new language at first, loud, fast, unpredictable. But there was something liberating about the chaos. Every street I walked, every cafe I sat in, every raindrop that touched my skin reminded me that I had escaped something that was quietly killing me. I had left behind the version of myself that waited for apologies that never came. Layla welcomed me with open arms, her laughter filling the small apartment we shared. Finally, she said that first morning, handing me a cup of tea. You look like yourself again. I smiled faintly, though my reflection told a different story. My eyes still carried the weight of goodbyes I hadn't said. My hands still trembled when I thought about that night, about Ethan's laughter echoing through the ballroom, about Cassandra's mocking smile. But each day, as I worked beside my sister, sketching new designs, choosing fabrics, staying up late surrounded by colors and creativity, I felt myself coming back to life. Our studio started small. 2 women, 1 dream, and a pile of determination. Layla had always believed in my talent. You don't design clothes, she'd tell me, you design emotions. People feel something when they wear your work. I'd always brushed it off before, but now, I let myself believe it. One morning, I received an email from a local fashion magazine. They wanted to feature our collection in a small designer showcase. It wasn't a huge opportunity, but to me, it felt like destiny knocking softly. I stayed up all night preparing, sewing until my fingers hurt, but I didn't mind. Every stitch was a piece of my healing. When the showcase finally happened, the response was overwhelming. One journalist wrote, "Her designs carry heartbreak stitched into hope." I laughed when I read it, because that was exactly what they were. Every piece I made told the story of a woman who had been broken and still found the courage to bloom again. Weeks passed, and life started feeling normal. Peaceful. My mornings were filled with sunlight, not arguments. My nights were filled with dreams, not tears. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't wake up wondering if someone loved me, I woke up knowing I loved myself. Then one evening, as the sky outside turned soft pink, I saw his name again. Ethan. It was an email. Short, hesitant, greater than Maya. I don't know where to begin. I saw the article about your designs. You look happy. I'm glad, truly. But I miss you. Cassandra wasn't who I thought she was. She betrayed me, and now everything's falling apart. I can't stop thinking about you. Please reply. I stared at the words, my fingers hovering over the keyboard. For a second, my chest tightened, because the truth was, part of me still remembered the man who once kissed my forehead and said I was his home. But then another part, the wiser one, whispered, he's only reaching out because his world collapsed. I didn't reply. 2 weeks later, another message came. Then another. Then one that simply said, I wish I could go back to that night and choose you instead of my pride. By the time his fourth email arrived, I had moved on emotionally. I didn't need his regret to validate my worth. His downfall didn't heal me, my courage did. But life has a strange way of circling back. One rainy morning, I was packing for Paris Fashion Week. It was our biggest break yet, a chance to showcase our designs internationally. As I zipped my suitcase, Layla's phone rang. She frowned. Maya, it's for you. Some man's asking about you. Says it's urgent. My stomach dropped even before I took the phone. Maya. The voice on the other end was tired, desperate. It's me, Ethan. I'm at Heathrow, he said quickly. Please, I just need 5 minutes. I should have said no. I should have hung up. But something in his tone, fragile, almost human, made me pause. Maybe I needed to see him one last time, not for closure, but to remind myself why I left. When I reached the airport, he was waiting near the arrivals gate, drenched from the rain. His once perfect hair was messy, his tailored suit wrinkled. For a moment, I didn't recognize him. The confident man who once owned every room he entered was gone. What stood before me was someone hollowed by his own choices. Maya, he breathed when he saw me, his eyes filling with something like disbelief. You came. I almost didn't, I said quietly. He took a step closer, his voice trembling. I'm sorry. I was stupid, proud, blind. That night, I wanted to look good in front of people who didn't matter. I mocked you when all you ever did was love me. I looked at him, searching his face for sincerity. It was there, but so was the ghost of every moment he'd made me feel small. You didn't just mock me, Ethan. You made me question my worth. He swallowed hard. I know. And I hate myself for it. Cassandra betrayed me. She leaked confidential data, cost us millions. My partners left. My reputation's gone, but losing you was worse than all of it. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. I watched the planes take off behind him, their engines roaring like freedom. Then I said softly, maybe that's the universe giving you a taste of humility. He nodded slowly, eyes glassy. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I need it. Maybe we can start over. I almost laughed. Not cruelly, but sadly. You still don't get it, do you? He looked confused. Get what? That forgiveness doesn't mean a second chance. It just means I'm done carrying the pain. He blinked, stepping back. You've changed. Yes, I said, smiling faintly. I had to. Because the woman who loved you would have stayed and tried to fix you. The woman I am now knows she deserves someone who never breaks her in the first place. The loudspeaker crackled then, announcing the boarding call for my flight to Paris. I picked up my bag, and his eyes widened. You're leaving? Yes, I said softly. My flight's leaving your world behind. He looked at me helplessly, like a man watching the last light fade from his horizon. Maya, please, just don't go yet. I met his gaze and smiled, not with bitterness, but with peace. Ethan, you mocked me to make others laugh. But I learned to rise while you were busy falling. I hope someday you learn that love isn't about applause, it's about respect. I turned then, walking toward the gate, my heels clicking against the polished floor. Behind me, I heard him call my name once, faintly, like a memory. But I didn't look back. Because looking back is how you get lost again. As the plane took off, I pressed my forehead against the window. London grew smaller beneath the clouds, and I felt a quiet pride bloom inside me. Not revenge, not triumph, just peace. He had mocked me before everyone, thinking it made him powerful. But in the end, I realized power wasn't in humiliation or control. It was in walking away with grace, in choosing silence over spite, in building a life so full that the person who broke you can't even fit in it anymore. And as the clouds opened to the morning light, I whispered to myself, you didn't lose him, Maya. You found yourself. And that was the happiest ending I could have ever written.